due to popular demand, we are going to be doing this, I guess, mega favorite numbers thing again. We are going to be calculating the position for the 4x4 and 5x5. So if you haven't seen my video on which I calculate the positions for a 3x3 and a 2x2, I highly recommend you watch that, because some of the things I'm going to explain here may not make sense if you haven't watched that video. So the link is right there, description or pinned comment. Without further ado, let's get into it. So in hindsight, let's just skip straight to the answer if you just came here for the number, and it looks like this. So if the top one is the 4x4 and the bottom one is the 5x5. So the 4x4 is approximately 7.4 times 10 to the 45 combinations. And the 5x5, I should have written there, the 5x5 is 2.8 times 10 to the 74. These are both ridiculous numbers, as you can see. But this one is a lot more bigger than this, obviously. So let's calculate the 4x4. So I want to point out, but I just want to address something. So a 3x3 has centers, and basically what that means is that no matter what moves I do, if I just like scramble up the cube real quick, say this is the white center, so this indicates that this is the white face. So it basically signifies whatever face that is. Now, if you remember on the 2x2, well, you might not remember, but if you recognize on the 2x2, it does not have any centers, which means we can just put our pieces wherever we like. But then if you watch the other video, we get the kind of the combinations where it's like we can just do this kind of stuff. But of course on a 3x3 we can't do that, because when we do this, well, I guess you could turn the wide lays. But what we're going to be doing is we're going to be doing turns that don't affect the centers. So we can do this, but it doesn't affect the centers. So with a 2x2, because it's an even number, it does not have a center. Just like a 4x4. It's even, so it does not have a center. Which means, if you remember the 2x2, we kind of have to ignore this one and then just turn this layer, and this layer. And if you think about it, what we actually are doing is we're only turning these 7 pieces, but we're turning it around this fixed point. And then that means this piece is solved. But does it look solved? No. So what we can do is essentially just ignore it, and we won't have any problem. So that's kind of the idea for it. So now, if we look on the 4x4, obviously there are corners. I'm not going to be taking apart the cube because of simplicity reasons, but there are 3 types of pieces. There's corners, obviously, with the 3 colors. There's edges, which obviously have 2 colors, and there's one more type, which is a center, and that has 1 color, and they are all in the middle. So we're going to be calculating the individual kind of value for each. So how many ways can you arrange the corners on the 4x4? Well, it's basically like a 2x2, so we can just write whatever it was for the 2x2. So if you go back to the last video, it was 3 to the power 7 times 7 factorial. And that was all divided by 3. So it's kind of like that. Now, to make this simpler, I'm just going to get rid of the 3 and change that to 3 to the power 6, just to make things a little bit simpler. So now let's calculate the edges. Now, the proper term for this is wings, and you'll see why later. But we'll just call them edges for now. So if you count them up, there are 24 edges around the 4x4. So if you think about it, like on the 3x3, there's 12 edges. On 4x4, there's 24. There's basically 2 in every edge spot. So basically this white green, it's like this white green, except there are 2. So you can think of it as double of this. So there are 24 edge pieces. Now, because of reasons, you think it'd be 24 factorial ways to arrange the edges, and probably divide by 2 to compensate from parity, because if you remember for these, you can't just swap 2 edges, you've got to swap 2 corners as well. Or what you can do is, if you do indeed swap 2 edges, you have to swap a different pair, and then that essentially creates a 3 cycle. Just something else I'd like to mention. But this does not apply to the wings. Let me explain. Okay, don't ask me why I've got a different 4x4, but anyway, so let's try and take this edge out. So I've taken this edge out. Now, to compensate for orientation, you may know that, like, I'm not going to take this out, but you know you can flip this edge, you just got to flip another one. Look what happens when we try to put this in. It doesn't go in. Why is that? It's because this edge has like this little kind of space in the middle, and that allows it to hook on. So if we try to flip it, it doesn't work. But if we try, say, this spot, and we try to flip it, it does go in. And then if we take this edge, obviously we can't have put in like this. We have to put in like this. So actually, no, if you put an edge piece in whatever spot, these are both unique. Like they may look the same, but they're actually different. So what that means is we can just put any edge wherever we like. We won't have to care about it. And you may have realized that I've just done one swap of edges. Now, obviously, just swapping 2 edges on 3x3 is not possible. But I'm not going to prove, I'm just going to show you that it is possible just to do this. So that it's possible. I did only regulation moves and didn't take anything out, but I've shown you that you can swap to these edges. So what this means is we can just put edges wherever we like, which means it's obviously 24 factorial. So that those the edges out that way. Now what about the centers? Now the centers are going to require a little bit more thought, but if you count them up, there's 6 faces, and each face has 4 centers, so that's 24 factorial centers. But wait, that's not right. Well, let's just multiply by 24 anyway, but here's the problem. It's possible to swap 2 centers. Like, I can... I won't do it, but it is possible to swap 2 centers, like any 2 centers, including these. You can swap centers on the same face, but if you just imagine, like, what if we swap this center and this center? It'd be the same thing. White would go to white and white would go to white. It just looks solved. But if we counted each of the 24 factorial combinations, then if we just swap these 2 centers, we'll be counting that as a completely different combination, which obviously doesn't make sense. This is different from this. So what we need to do is we need to divide by something. So let's just focus on one side for now, and we look at white. Now, how many centers are on here? Well, it's 4. Now, since we can put any center wherever we like, there's no parity whatevers, so it's just 4 factorial. So what we can do is divide by 4 factorial. But since there are 6 faces, we have to divide by 4 factorial 6 times. A little shortcut, I'm going to put 4 factorial to the 6. And this is the full calculation, actually. Could argue that I will do 24 factorial squared, just to save a little bit of time. So now what we can do is get our calculator and just put in the numbers. So that's 3 power 6 multiplied by 7 factorial multiplied by, and here's a little tip, we just put brackets, 24 factorial, and then, oops, we gotta bracketize that and square that, and divide this by bracketize that, and 4 factorial, and then, no, what happened? 4 factorial to the power of 6. We get 7.40019. Okay, so essentially 7.4 times 10 to the 45. That's what I had here. 7.4 times 10 to the 45. And we kind of compare the first few digits, if you'd like to pause down and write that. It's pretty close. It's pretty close to the actual value. So we can say that I got this right. Now, obviously, my calculator cannot show the full, I believe it would be 45 digits of the number, but you can trust that this number is pretty much correct. Now, this number is really big. Now, I'm not going to tell you how big because I've got 5 by 5 to come next, but I'll give you some, I guess, context around the number later. So, rub all of this out so we can deal with the 5 by 5. So the 5 by 5 is actually calculated pretty similar to the 4 by 4. And actually, if you can do this, you can pretty much do a 6 by 6 and 7 by 7. I don't have those. The biggest I have is a 5 by 5. But I'm sure you can kind of get the trick. So, if you think about it, the 5 by 5 is kind of just a 3 by 3 with extra pieces. If you look really closely, the 5 by 5 actually has, I think, 5 types of pieces. Corners, main edges, so when I slice this is like the middle edge. This is the middle edge. And then we have side edges, and this is why I call these wings, because they're kind of like the side. There's like no middle edge. Like this is the middle edge, but these are wings. And there's actually different types of centers. You can actually have a corner center or an edge center, and these cannot be interchanged. So hopefully you understood all of that. So if you think about it, the 5 by 5 is actually just a 3 by 3 with extra pieces, but I'll get to that. If you look at it like this, you can see that this is a corner. These are corners, obviously. But then you have these really middle edge pieces like this, and like this, and like this. I kind of picked this because this is on the side, and this is the middle. We want to pick the middle. Middle, middle, middle. And it also has the centers. Center, 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 center. Which means this is odd, so we don't have to do the ignore one piece thingy. So actually, what we can do is we can just plug in the number of combinations for the 3 by 3. So, again, go watch that video if you don't know how to calculate this. But it's basically 12 factorial multiplied by 8 factorial multiplied by 2 to the power of 12 multiplied by 3 to the power of 8. Divide that all by 12 for the parity stuff. Now, just a little bit of a shortcut. If you do 12 factorial divided by 12, you do get 11 factorial. So, just a little bit of a shortcut there. So, 11 factorial times that, that's the amount of combinations on a normal 3 by 3 Rubik's Cube. So, what about all those other pieces? We kind of have like a few other pieces left. We have like this. So let's deal with the wings, so basically the outer stuff. Now this is actually the same as a 4 by 4. And if you remember to the 4 by 4, these had 24 factorial different ways to arrange them. So we can just multiply that by 24 factorial and we have no problem. Now let's look at the corner centers. These are actually kind of like the 4 by 4. Like if you hold it like this, these are kind of the same. This is like the same. This is like the same. And this is like the same. They're kind of the same in this aspect. So we can just apply that same kind of sum, I guess. So that was multiplied by 24 factorial, and it was like a 4 factorial to the 6 because of the 6 faces. Now what about the, I'm going to call it edge center. It's kind of like the edge. Now, this is actually kind of the same as the corner centers. Well, it is pretty much the same. Because you have 4 of them, and they're kind of the same, you can just do the same thing. So you have 4 whites of corners and 4 whites of edges, so we can just do the same thing. Multiply again by 24 factorial and divide that again by 4 factorial to the 6. So let's just clean up this mess a little bit. 4 factorial to the 6 multiplied by 4 factorial to the 6 can be simplified to 4 factorial to the 12. And then 24 factorial times 24 factorial times 24 factorial, that can be reduced into times 24 factorial to the 3, or 24 factorial cubed. I think we're good now. I hope. So let's see how this goes. Handy dandy calculator. 11 factorial multiplied by 8 factorial multiplied by 2 to the power of 12 multiplied by 3 to the power of 8 multiplied by 24 factorial. No, I keep doing that mistake. Cubed, and then divide by 4 factorial to the power of 12. We get 2.8 times 10 to the 74. 2828709423 2828709422. I mean, this calculator just rounds it up, so technically I am right. So this is like close enough. If you come on, be real. If you have like the first, I think that's like 10 digits right, you can be sure that this is right. And in case you think I'm not right, just go look it up. I'm sure you can find this exact number. So that's it, but I will say one more thing, and that's if someone really wants to figure out the number of combinations for a 6x6, well, 1, you can look it up, but 2, if you actually want to work it out yourself, then I'll draw this like 6x6, like bird's eye view. I'll just have to. Okay, hopefully that was an okay drawing. So what you want to do is you want to do the corners. Now there are actually 4 types of centers. There's very corner centers, so they're basically these ones. They're the ones on the outside. They're inner center corners, and there are kind of like these kind of centers where it's like they're kind of like edge centers, but there's like 2 of them, so you can they're like indistinguishable. And then we have the types of edge pieces, so these are the same. No, not that one. And then these are the same. Hopefully that makes sense, because I don't actually have a 6x6. If I did, I could probably explain this better. And the same goes on for like a 7x7. If I had like a 7x7, I could definitely try to at least explain this. So just to give you a context on how big these numbers actually are. In fact, the original 3x3, the number of combinations, is still pretty big, 43 quintillion and such. But it's nothing compared to these. But still, this is really big. Like, say if everyone in the world, about, I don't know, 7.5 billion, something like that, like they all had a Rubik's Cube and then tried to create every single possible combination on this, it will take them about 2 months, which still is a really long time. But when you think about it in this context, it feels like nothing, because when you get to the 4x4, if you try to do the exact same thing, it would take you 31 septillion years to do this. It will take everyone in the world 31 septillion years to try to get all the possible combinations of the 4x4, which is ridiculous. So even just this is ridiculous. But the 5x5, as you can guess, is on a higher order of magnitude more ridiculous. So let's see if I can put it into context this way. All right. So we have a 4x4. And basically what you're going to do is you're going to put this here, and then, like, let's say a computer, every second, it generates a new 3x3 scramble every time, until it's used up all the combinations. Alright, now you take the 4x4 and turn it into a new combination, like this. And then the computer starts again. Then you turn the 4x4 into a new combination, and the computer starts again. So basically, what we are doing is for every single combination on the 4x4, which is this, we're essentially multiplying it by this because we have to do every single combination for every single combination. So what this means is, how long would it take us to reach the 5x5 total? Just like, because we have a 5x5 behind here, and a computer is actually, every scramble this does, it generates a new scramble for the 5x5. So this is going to get scrambled a lot. So how long will this take? So what this means is we can start calculating. So 2.8 times 10 to the 74th. Okay, we can divide all of this by 7.4 times 10 to the 45. And then times that by 4.3 times 10 to the 19. Comment guess, what would be on the calculator? If we get a number that's, say, like 2, then we'll have to repeat this process all again until the 5x5 is used up in all its combinations. We have to repeat this 879,949,717 times. Now remember, the 4x4, it would take us 31 septillion years to take us through all of the possibilities. And every time we do a 4x4, a 3x3, and we do the 4x4, 3x3 thing, it's going to take us that long. Now, maybe our computer needs an upgrade. So maybe instead of doing it every second, it will do it every millisecond. That will speed up the process by 1,000. So what we can essentially do is divide by 1,000. We still get 879,949, which is ridiculous. Let's try this again. 1,000. This is literally milliseconds, and we are at 879 repetitions of this. So the moral of the story is numbers are really big, and you can imagine why I am saying that if you try to work out the numbers for 6x6 and 7x7, it's not going to be pretty. Alright, thanks for watching part 2 of Mega Favorite Numbers. If you'd like me to do more puzzles, then if you would like to see me do a puzzle of the kind, leave in the comments below. And if you would like to see me do a parody explanation, so basically why you can't do a corner twist, why you can't do like swap to that kind of thing, because I kind of just said, oh, you can't do this, but that's a little bit unsatisfying, because why can't you do it? So if you do, then just comment down below. I'll definitely give it a heart. Alright, see you next time.